What's going on, everybody? I'm New Yorker, and welcome to another episode of Cream Soda Revolutions. This is episode 8, and this week I am doing an album from literally yesteryear, from last year. This is probably one of my favorite albums from last year, and I will remind you, after the disco came out last year as well, this is They Want My Soul by Spoon. Now, I want to get out of the way really quickly. Please go and check out Spoon. They're so good. And I'm going to be honest, I really like them in the same sort of way that I really like Broken Bells, and I really like I mentioned last week, I really like the song Same Ol' from The Heavy. And I really like them, and I don't have a good reason for it. I just do. I guess really, if I have to give a reason for it, they're really slick. You know, they're really refined. They're fine with being like a very cohesive combination of, on one hand, they're kind of, I don't want to say safe, but they're very, again, I've said this before, very approachable. Like, they're very, they're not wildly experimental or anything like that. But then on the other hand, they're not quite typical. Like, there is something different about them, a bit of a je ne sais quoi. And I love that about them, you know. And of course, their music's really good, and they're good musicians. So, you know the deal. I'm going to get started. So, song number 1, Rent I Pay, R.I.P. Rip in peace, Rent I Pay. Is actually, I guess, kind of a fun fact. When they were teasing this album, because they went on hiatus for a couple years before they released this album, they needed to take a break. Totally understandable. But when they teased this album, Rent I Pay was the song that they first revealed from it. And before they revealed the song, they put on their website, I don't remember what it was, like a date and then RIP, you know, R.I.P. And I think people were like, what's going on? Does it have to do with a new thing? Are they announcing something? What is it, you know? And it was Rent I Pay, which happens to be R.I.P. I've mentioned before, so I'm going to get it out of the way. Is it a good opening song in the context of the album? I think it's admirable. You know, I think it's pretty good, but not amazing. You know, like I said last time, Can't Play Dead, that's it. Can't Play Dead is a really, really good, like, fantastic, borderline perfect. It's not quite perfect, but it's very close opening song for an album. Rent I Pay isn't quite there, but it's good. You know, it's not a bad opening song, but it's not a fantastic opening song. It's good. It's one of the more rocker songs on here, because these guys, sort of in the same way that Broken Bells is kind of between rock and electronica and a bunch of other stuff, and that's just because of the two guys that are Broken Bells. It's what they do. You know, it's a combination of them. These guys, Spoon, are also kind of like that, but Spoon's more towards rock than they are anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're rock, but they have some of other stuff, like synthesizers and everything like that, which I guess really is kind of just modern rock. But anyway, so my point is, Rent I Pay is, like, pretty well strictly a rock song. It's got that snare drum beginning part, kind of like, it reminds me of a song by the Raconteurs, Steady As She Goes. Has not quite the exact same, but very, very similar sort of thing at the beginning. Personally, I'm a sucker for a song that starts with just drums, and it's not just like one fill for like 2 beats. Like, the song isn't just bap bap a doom boom and it starts, you know, when there's actually like a drum part that starts a song. I'm 100% biased because I'm a drummer, but I like it. You know, and this is an excellent song. Rent I Pay is, I guess there's 1 or 2 small changes that I personally would make on an artistic standpoint, but as a critic, I think Rent I Pay is a solid opening song, and a solid song, yeah, in general. Next, Inside Out. I have 1 or 2 main gripes with this album. One of them is that there's a bit of inconsistency as far as flow into the next song is concerned. Like, I think every song is really good on its own, but they don't always flow into each other the best. This is probably the most, or the biggest offender of that is song 1 into song 2, which is really like the worst place that you could do that. Like, you have to at least have your first couple songs flow into each other, otherwise why am I going to keep listening, right? Same theory is like with books. You know, how if I'm not grabbed immediately, you know, I'm not going to be grabbed, you know, like, it's not true for all people, but it's true for a lot of people. You know, some people say the first line is the most important, some people say the first paragraph. Personally, I'll give it the first page, but you know what I mean, like, the beginning is important. So it is kind of a shame that Ren I Pay does not at all flow well into Inside Out. Inside Out's probably the most electronic-y, the most, I don't want to necessarily say alternative, but the most synthesizer-y for sure, you know, the most electronic, really, is the only way that I can describe it. So it's a little weird going from completely, like, almost no synthesizer at all, Ren I Pay, into the most synthesizer on the album with Inside Out. Inside Out's not a bad second song, but I don't think after following up Ren I Pay, I don't know. That being said, taking Inside Out for what it is on its own, it's a fantastic song. It's a really good song. It's slow. It's kind of borderline, if you want to call it a ballad or not. I'm not going to call it a ballad because it's not an example of me hating ballads, and it's like, the reason I hate ballads, I think I've explained this before, but I don't like ballads because they're boring, and I'm somewhat biased because I'm a drummer, and ballads are more often than not boring for the drummer. But Inside Out isn't boring, and it's not boring for the drummer, the rest of it isn't boring, like, it's just slower, so I'm fine with it. Like, it's like a medium tempo hip-hop song, you know? I think it's around there. I think it's like 90, 100 beats per minute. Like, that's not slow. You know, it's more ambient and stuff like that. Like, it has qualities of a ballad, but I wouldn't call it a ballad. Anyways, I really love in the second half what sounds like a harp. I mean, there's a good chance it's a sample, you know, or some sort of very, very convincing keyboard sound, but it at least sounds like a harp, so I'm going to call it a harp. I like the addition of that on the, honestly, I brought it up, but the kind of hip-hop-esque drum beat that goes through the whole thing. And it's the lyrics are a little out there, which I am a sucker for. You know, you want to impress me, write lyrics that I have to sit down and think about to understand what the hell you're fucking talking about. I love that shit. So I like that about Inside Out. I like that about Klaxons, you know, how Klaxons' lyrics, even if they're not necessarily very metaphoric, they're always out there, you know, like they were high when they wrote shit. I love that. I'm a sucker for that. Next, Rainy Taxi. Why is it called Rainy Taxi? I don't know. I don't think he says the words Rainy Taxi in it at all, but it's called Rainy Taxi. This one's cool. A bunch of the songs on here, I kind of have a good idea what they're about, and some of them I don't, and I'm okay with that. You know, like, I prefer when I can figure out what a song is about, but it's not like a requirement for me or anything like that. And Rainy Taxi is one that I'm genuinely just not sure. I will say, personally, I think Rainy Taxi would have been a better second song. I think it follows up Ren I Pay better than Inside Out does. This is also one of the transition moments, is transitioning from Inside Out into Rainy Taxi. It's like basically the last one. I don't think there is another moment where the transition's so bad, but it's just Inside Out is like the black sheep in between Ren I Pay and Rainy Taxi. Like, it doesn't transition well at all, either direction, you know, from song 1 into song 2, and then from song 2 into song 3. That being said, Rainy Taxi is, I don't know, it's solid, you know? It's not exceptional, but it's not just good, it's solid, you know? It's a very respectable, like, 7.5 out of 10. Again, though, just, what are you about? Tell me your secrets. Please. Next, one of my personal favorite songs on here, Do You. I love the vocal performance on this track. Like, if you haven't heard Spoon, which Unless you're a music guy, you probably haven't heard Spoon. And even then, you have to be a music guy who respects Rolling Stone magazine to have heard of Spoon. That's where I heard of them. Whenever I'm looking for new music and I don't have like I usually have a list of stuff that other people have recommended that I just need to get around to. Whenever that list is empty and I'm in the mood for new music, I'll go on a Rolling Stone and I'll pick a year and I'll be like best albums of that year, and I'll go through the list. Any of them that interest me, I'll go through them. That's how I found this album, because it was on their I think top 50 albums of last year, of 2014. Anyways, but my point is, if you know Spoon, you know that they don't have the traditional like Disney guy singer voice. Like he has that sort of Trent Reznor, Cage the Elephant sort of. His is maybe a little grittier than that, but that's sort of more not traditional vocal sound. It's a non-traditional male vocalist sound. His is a little, basically, really a very good way of describing it. I just said it is like a grittier version of the guy from Cage the Elephant, down like half an octave, down like a perfect fifth or something like that. You know, bit lower voice, but especially compared to Melophobia, but lower voice, but that same kind of sound. And I really like the vocal performance on Do You. I really like the vocal line. I like the way that he sang it. And the rest of the song, I will say, isn't quite exceptional. The exceptional part of the song for me is the vocals. But the rest of it is, again, I'm going to use this word a lot on here. It's solid. I don't want to say cool because I get made fun of that I say cool on here a lot. But it's solid. It's very respectable, you know. It's really good. And the song itself is kind of cool. I like how it's about, from what I can tell, and this is just like rough ideas, like I haven't really refined this or anything. From what I can tell, Do You is about how it's like, you know, everything around us just sort of keeps slowly piling up. Like we keep getting more problems. We solve one problem and now there's two more, you know. And it's sort of like, from what I can tell, the singer is sort of referring to someone, like they're talking to someone, and they're saying like, what's your thoughts? You know, how are you getting through everything? Like, are you buckling down? Do you do you stop when it's just getting good? You know, what's your take? I guess I like the one line in particular, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the first part exactly, but it's, someone get popsicles, someone do something about the heat, because it's late in October and tires still melting in the streets. I love that. It's not particularly amazing lyrically, but as far as like meaning or anything like that, but the sound, like the actual sound of the words coming out is very pretty. Kind of like how the term cellar door is apparently one of the most beautiful phrases in all of language. I personally don't see it. Cellar door. Cellar door. Cellar door. I don't know. Maybe you could explain that to me, but those two lines just sound pretty to me. I don't know what it is. Anyway, next. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock is also one of my favorite songs on here. And so is the one after it, actually. Knock, knock, knock it's taking cues from like bluesy rock. And I don't mean bluesy rock as in, like, someone doing a more distorted version of Sweet Home Chicago. You know, I'm not talking about, like, fucking Leadbelly meets Alex Van Halen. I'm referring to, like, that sort of bluesy, but also sort of, like, hard rock kind of, I don't know how to describe it. But that sort of bluesier version of like power chords, you know what I mean, where the guitarist is like putting a lot of effort, like physical motion into strumming, kind of like I picture like The Who, Pete Townsend I think it was, that his sort of like his whirling strumming thing. If you don't know what I mean, like he would spin his arm in circles, like, you know, the guitar thing where the guitarist is just whipping their arm around in circles, and every time it comes down he's strumming the guitar. Pete Townsend, as far as I'm aware, is the guy who started that. That sort of just motion, that's what I feel from Knock 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 in a musical sense. I like the the electronic part in this song is noise. You know, like, because the song is about emotion, and I'll get into that in a second, but I like the just, like, static electronic digital noise that shows up during the song. And it's not like a thing in the background, it'll be like just like for a split second, like you know. And it, I know I'm not giving it justice, you know. It's that sounds terrible. That sounds like, why the hell would anyone want to do that? But it's very calculated. Like, it's noise that's calculated to be musical, you know. And I'm not going to get into a whole what is music John Cage bullshit, but it sounds nice, and that's what matters, right? Lyrically, this is one of my favorite songs in recent memory that I've heard recently. It's about a person. The singer knows someone, either like family, friends, something like that, but they're pretty close with someone who's an addict to something, you know, probably drugs, but I don't know, something. And it's about how that person keeps coming back to the singer, and they're, every day I hear knock, 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 and I know that it's you. That's the point. Like, they keep coming back to the singer, and the singer wants to help them, but they don't want to just be enabling them. Because, you know, the old thing, like, for example, like, say a man gets addicted to heroin, right? And then he starts going to his father for help, and his father keeps giving him money and letting him stay and stuff like that, but he's just feeding his heroin addiction, you know, that sort of thing, that fine balance. That's what the song is about, and I think that's cool. You know, like, respect for having a song about something that, you know, maybe a lot of people would be like, nah, I don't want to talk about that. That's a heavy issue, you know? They're like, nah, you know, I can make a song about anything, you know, and it can have meaning behind it or not. I want to have meaning behind it, and this is what I want to talk about. So total respect for that. You know, it's something that I personally can attest to. Like, it's kind of hard to sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song with meaning, you know, so this song being able to do it is definitely respectable. Next, my other one of my favorite songs on here, but we haven't even gotten to my all-time favorite yet. I'll tell you when that happens. But also one of my personal favorites, Outlier. One quick thing about Outlier that I think is really cool. Knock 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 and Outlier would have to have, I don't know if they did this, but they would have to have like a different radio edit if they released them as singles. I think Outlier was released as a single, but I don't know if Knock 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 was. But the reason is Knock 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 fades into Outlier. Like, it's the best transition in the whole album is Knock 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 into Outlier. Most of them are okay. It's really just Inside Out that's the monkey wrench thrown into it. But the way they did it is Knock 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 pans to the left, you know, so the sound goes from everywhere, you know, surrounding you, which we in the music industry call middle. Center is everywhere, like equal left and right. Pans over to the left, so all the sound slowly goes over to the left as it's fading out. And then in the right, Outlier's fading in, and then as Outlier, the track actually starts, Outlier goes over to the center. And then when it fades out to the left again. Really, really cool, very simple, you know, very straightforward idea. One of them leaves on one side, the other one comes in on the other side. You know, very, very straightforward idea, but it sounds cool. The one thing, though, is that would be fucking weird if they played one of them on radio, right? Because then, I mean, yes, people on radio generally are in their car, but it would be weird if you happen to be like that one loser listening to the radio with headphones, and the next song comes up and it's only in your right ear, and then it moves over to the, and you're like, whatever, and then it moves over to the center, and you're like, fine, whatever the hell that was, and then as it's fading out to the left, you're like, what the fuck? What's happening? I don't know, I think that would be cool. I think it would be weird. Anyway, Outlier. There are two things I like musically about this song in particular. Not necessarily for this song in specific, but I like them as musical ideas. One of them is having one idea be present and repeating for the whole track. The drum beat basically doesn't change. There's like minor little things that he adds every once in a while, but as a drummer, that's called being asked to play the same thing for 4.5 minutes. We add shit. You know, we get bored. There's a reason we became drummers and not real musicians, okay? But so that the drums, the one guitar line, I think it's the guitar line does this. The keys kind of do this, but it's the one part for the whole song, and I can respect that because it's not easy to do that, or at least it's not as easy as it looks. It's kind of easy, but it's not as easy as it looks to do that for a whole song, especially something like this, which is again 4.5 minutes long, and not have it just grow tiresome. You know, it's really easy to say, and I should clarify, and it not be a club track. Okay, club music, that's the whole fucking point. Is it's the same goddamn thing for 7 minutes. That's the point. You're not listening to the music, you're just moving to it, you know? But with this, which is a rock song, you know, a 4.5 minute rock song, and it's not like AC/DC, and it sounds good, and I'm sorry, I don't like AC/DC, but my point is, like, they could have the same thing repeating, and it sounds well, you know? It sounds really well, and it doesn't take away from everything else that's going on. It's really well done. Also a song that I really like the vocal performance on. You know, like, that particularly stands out. Do You is one of them, and then Outlier is also one of them, where the vocal performance and the vocal part and maybe kind of the lyrics, but just the vocals in general particularly stand out to me. I really like Outlier for that. It's cool. It's a great song. Next, the titular They Want My Soul. Can't have an album without the name of the album being the name of one of the songs, right? I have two gripes with this song. I have two problems, I guess, with this song. Oh, sorry, actually, with Outlier, I totally didn't point out the other thing that I said. I really like how they repeat the same thing. And then the other thing that I really like about it in particular, again, was the vocals, sorry. But yeah, scrambled up there, sorry. They Want My Soul. Two gripes with They Want My Soul. Number one is it sounds a lot like another song on here. Like, it sounds an awful lot like Let Me Be Mine. And unfortunately, I prefer Let Me Be Mine. So They Want My Soul, when They Want My Soul comes on, half of me is just like, oh, I wish this is Let Me Be Mine. You know, I don't know. Anyways, my other gripe with it then is just, I don't know, I guess the song in general. Like, the song isn't, it isn't as catchy. You know, the lyrics are a little more metaphorical, but they almost sound metaphorical for metaphor's sake. Like, it's sort of like the bad part of MGMT. And don't get me wrong, I like MGMT, but sometimes their lyrics sound like they're just trying to be deep. You know what I mean? And that's sort of what They Want My Soul sounds like. Where it's like, why the fuck does a street preacher want your soul? You know, like, a big part of the lyrics is he lists all these people, essentially. And he's like, they all want my soul. And it's like, why? I don't understand what you're getting at, you know? Otherwise, I don't think it's a bad song. You know, I think it's pretty solid. And I hate that I'm fucking using that word now. Jesus. I think it's pretty good. You know, I don't think it's bad. I think it's pretty good. It's just, it stands out in a negative way compared to a lot of the rest of the album. Next, I Just Don't Understand, which is a cover. I don't remember who the original by. It was a blues lady. I don't remember her name. I'll put her in the dump. But yeah, it's a cover. And it's a very well done cover. You know, it's bluesy enough that you totally get, yeah, this is a blues song. But it's also still alt rock and indie rock enough that it doesn't feel wrong. Like, it still feels like it's a worthwhile part of the album. Another really good vocal performance. I like the, this is the third really standout vocal performance for me, at least, is I Just Don't Understand. I also appreciate, because I appreciate that the lyrics are not particularly hard to learn, because I did this song for one of my classes. I sang this song for one of my classes in college. I'll get into that some other time, probably, if I ever do like a Q&A or anything like that. Write this down. If I ever do a Q&A, ask me about the vocal class that I took in college. But anyways, yeah, I Just Don't Understand. Solid, you know. It's a kind of bare bonesy song. Like, it's really just vocals and piano and drums. You know, it's very well put together, minimal but not detrimental. You know, it's good. Is good. Next, the aforementioned Let Me Be Mine. I really like this song. I really like the piano part in this song. I like This one sort of is just barely not one of my favorite songs on here, and that's only because there's 10 songs on here. I don't want 5 of them to be my favorite songs on here, you know? But yeah, this one's really solid, really really good. Some could say it is great. I would agree with them. I think the song is great. And I like how there's a couple different things going on here lyrically. Like on the one hand, it's almost like a breakup song, and I'm not really sure where this part fits in, where it's like, go ahead and take another chunk of me with you when you go. I don't know where that part really fits in, but it's there. And then there's the, I guess sort of the, I guess it kind of could fit in the idea of like, if you love it, let them go sort of idea, where it's like the line is, auction off what you love, it will come back sometime. That's right. It's cool. It's also in a way quite kind of a song about like peer pressure in a way, where there's this part where there's this they, you know, the all encompassing they. I don't know, man. It's hard to explain. The lyrics for this one are a little, without having the lyrics up so that you guys can like read it along with me. It's almost impossible to explain this. So I'm gonna move on to my absolute favorite song, final song on the album. And I will say, Red Taipei was just a really good opening song. Wasn't perfect, but it was really good. New York Kiss, which is the last song, amazing way to end the album. As good of an ending, oh, maybe not quite, but almost very, very close to being as good of an ending song as Can't Play Dead, that's it, as Can't Play Dead was on Glorious Dead. New York Kiss is such a great song, and it's such a great ending song. And it's kind of in the same way as, or in the same boat as Same Old, where it's like, I really love it, and I can't explain why I really love it. Like, there isn't a good reason. With one sort of exception, with New York Kiss, I can kind of explain it. I love the emotional feeling behind New York Kiss. I love the, like, have I brought this up before? Yeah, I think I've brought this up before. I have a mixtape in the traditional sense, where you take a bunch of songs and you put them all together and to make sort of like a custom album, not this fucking bullshit hot new mixtape when really you mean an EP. Shit. Like, you didn't need to come up with a word for a small album. There was a term, EP, extended play. Jesus Christ. Anyways. So, I made a mixtape a little while ago because I was like, fuck it, why not? And the mixtape is all about songs that mean a lot to me emotionally. That just listening through them, they all give me an emotional ride, I guess. And I don't mean that in like a wild ups and downs sort of emotional ride, but like kind of like a soft arch, you know, of emotion. Mostly one particular emotion, but anyway. New York Kiss is on there. Is on that my mixtape for that reason. You know, it's absolutely an emotional song. It's I lump it in with some other songs that I'll probably talk about at some point. It's Milk and Black Spiders by Foals, Shooting Stars by Bag Raiders. There's a few that sort of fit into there, and man, this song is great. This song is a nice sort of nostalgic love song, where it was like, you know what, you sort of had me at this one moment in the past, and maybe we'll never get back to there, but that moment was fun while it lasted. You know, it was that New York kiss. You know, that kiss in New York is the idea there. Anyway, that is the album, all 10 songs. And I don't have a lot that I want to talk about the album as a whole. I really like it. Again, they went on a hiatus for a couple of years before they made this album. They just needed to take a break, you know. They needed a breather. Totally respectable. I don't know. So I'm just going to talk about sort of Spoon in general, and I'm going to talk about my Music Geek. And really, it's the same thing, so I'm just going to talk about my Music Geek. So my Music Geek this time has to do with popularity, and it has to do kind of with success. And it's something that myself and a bunch of my friends that I'm in college with have talked about together. And it's something that's really important for a musician to sort of, I guess, come to terms with. And it really it is popularity, and in a way it's completely out of your control. Obviously, like, you can do as many tips and as many of the strengths and stuff that we're constantly recommended. We can do as many things as possible to try to become popular, and ultimately, really, it becomes a roll of the dice. You know, like, there's a lot of things you can do to help work towards that, but there is an element of luck that can't be ignored. But what I want to talk about is I want to talk about how you define success, like how popular you have to be to define success. Now, let's take Spoon as an example. Spoon is an indie band. Spoon has always been an indie band. Spoon has been an indie band for 20 years. Spoon formed in, I think, like 1993, 1994, and they have always been independent. You know, they have never been popular music. You could argue that. You could argue, well, what do you mean popular music? Fucking top 40 on Billboard? Well, correct. They haven't been that. But they've been popular enough to be completely successful. You know, like, all they do is make music, right? It's like that is their career. It's not like they have some other job on the side. And they're successful enough to make music as a great living on its own. You know, a lot of people can't fucking say that, you know? So, this leads me to the discussion that myself and some of my friends have had, and I'm not going to name names, but not because, like, they said something offensive or anything like that, but because I haven't talked to them about it, like, I haven't asked their permission or anything, so I'm not going to name names just to be safe. But myself and my one friend in particular, we talked about this a bunch, and it's how successful do we want to be? You know, like, we're in school for music, we're learning the music industry, we're constantly improving as players, you know, and as musicians. So the question became, how successful do you want to be? You know, like, what sort of end goal do you want? And the two of us sort of agreed on this, where we both said we don't want to be number one on Billboard and be a huge popular sensation for, like, say 10, 15 years. You know, we don't want to be Taylor Swift. We don't want to be, I don't know, One Direction. You know, we don't, not just because they're pop, but we don't want to be like that sort of famous. You know, we don't want that sort of popularity. Now, I know a bunch of people are going to be, or could, I know a bunch of people would respond to that and say, well, why not? You know, wouldn't everyone want to be a rock star? You know, I mean, firstly, you never really know if you're going to like that until, like, if you're going to like the lifestyle until you're in the lifestyle. You know, like, there's a reason why the lead singer from Counting Crows, which is the band, they did Mr. Jones. If you don't know the name, Google it. You've heard the song. But one of the lines in there is like, when everyone loves me, then I'll be happy. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But part of the idea of the song is, when I'm famous, then I'll be happy. And then that song blew up. That song was huge. Counting Crows became famous, and the lead singer hated the lifestyle. They hated how everything changed. You know, so then after they became famous, whenever they played it live, a lot of the time he would change the lyrics. I don't remember what he changed it to exactly, but he changed it to be like how he basically saying how he hates being how everyone knows him, you know, and how everyone, in air quotes, loves him. So what my friend and I were saying is, we don't want to be super famous. We don't want to be international A-list celebrity superstars, because we don't want to deal with all that. We don't want the paparazzi bullshit, you know, because paparazzi are fucking assholes in a lot of countries. Don't get me wrong, I understand paparazzi being a thing, and I'm fine with paparazzi having some sort of free roam, but the sort of freedoms they have in the US especially, and to a slightly lesser degree Canada, the sort of freedoms they have is bullshit. Okay, it's just bullshit. Like, I get the whole argument where it's this balancing act between right to privacy and right to publicity, where if you want to be famous, then you can't have as many privacies. But still, we need to, there needs to be a little more of a benefit of the doubt as far as the celebrity who the paparazzi are harassing, but different discussion for a different day. What we wanted, what myself and my friend wanted, is we didn't want that. We didn't want to be fucking retardedly famous. What we wanted is we wanted to be popular enough among our fans. You know, we wanted to be able to make music for a living, you know, and not have to have any other job in addition. You know, and we wanted to be successful enough that we could just do that for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, you know? Like, yeah, it's hard to ask for more than 10 years, you know? It's rare that a band is successful enough to make money just off the band for more than 10 years, you know? And it's only slightly less rare for an individual artist, you know? Like, who goes among a few different bands or something like that. But, you know, like that's what we want to do, is we want to be famous enough without being that famous, you know? Think like a lot of metal bands, a lot of the more popular metal bands, you know? It would be cool to be like, say, I don't know, Slayer levels of famous, where we're not, again, we're not Taylor Swift, you know? But, I mean, we're not Cousin Jimmy who can play 5 chords. You know what I mean? And I feel like Spoon is a pretty good example of what my friend and I are aiming for. You know, where Spoon is famous enough that they can play a bunch of venues, they can live off of their music, and they're not living like in a basement apartment in Harlem. You know, they can live fairly well off of their music. You know, they can make a good living. They're famous enough, but they're not that famous. You know, they're famous enough, they're in Rolling Stone, but they're not, again, they're not top of Billboard sort of famous. Like, the only sort of chart that they place on is album sales, and even then, usually for, like, alternative stuff. You know, like alt-rock album sale or something like that. Like, maybe they'll chart in regular Billboard top whatever album sale. But really, that isn't an indication of who's super popular. Really, unless you're in the top, that isn't an indication. So I guess that is my Music Geek for the week. This has been another long one. I'm really getting loose with my half an hour time limit here, aren't I? I guess I just have more to talk about with each song as I keep doing this, and as I get better at doing this, because trust me, I much prefer what my podcast sounds like now compared to what it sounded like in the first two. Man. But that is my Music Geek, and that is thinking about, you know, popularity, and how popular do you need to be, and how popular do you want to be. So I'm just going to do my recommendation. I realized I forgot my recommendation for the last one, so I'm just going to really quickly... The Glorious Dead is a daytime album. It is not a nighttime album, and it is an album that you don't necessarily want to throw on in the background when you're not at all paying attention to it. It's a good middle, but I'm not going to say you necessarily have to be intently paying attention to it. It's a good middle of the ground sort of. It's a good ride the bus to work or school sort of album where you're sort of more paying attention to it than not. But anyway, with this one, with They Want My Soul, this one's not really a daytime, not really a nighttime. It's a little more day than it is night. I would put it as sort of like a dawn or dusk. Like, it's a decent album when you wake up in the morning, and it's also a decent album for like, say, the way home to grab dinner or whatever, you know? Like, for example, this is an album that I would put on when I'm leaving school, you know, when classes are done for the day, and I'm going to ride the bus home, and it's, say, like 4:30, 5 o'clock, you know, so I'm going to get home in time for dinner, that sort of idea. But this has been They Want My Soul by Spoon. I have been New Yorker. This has been Cream Soda Revolutions. And I just want to say really quickly at the end here, I'm sorry this one was a day late. But normally I have these recorded by Thursday, and then Thursday I'll do all the editing and everything, get everything ready, and then I'll just stay up late on Thursday and start having YouTube post and whatnot right around midnight. That way everything's done early Thursday morning. This time it was I was up. It was like 11:30 Thursday night, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is a week where I have a podcast." So I apologize. I will try to make it up to you guys somehow. I may have episodes every week for a little bit because I have a special episode that I want to put up in 2 weeks. So I may end up either moving that one or having one next week, and then the week after that I'll have the special one. And that is because if you're on my Tumblr, you know, Foals is releasing an album a week today, and I'm super excited for it. You know, like, again, Foals is one of my favorite bands. I love the direction they're going. I've heard the couple of singles that they've released from this album, and they're really good. I'm super psyched. So I want to talk about the album when it's fresh and new. So depending on when I get my hands on it, I may end up doing that a week today. I may end up doing that next week, or I may end up doing it 2 weeks from now, but then I may end up doing like a special edition. There's a couple things that I want to do, a couple of like special podcasts that I want to do that I might do next week. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome as always. I would say you guys are the reason I'm doing this, but to be frank, I love music. That's the reason I'm doing this. You guys just make this even better. So thanks. Tune in next week and have a good one. Goodbye.